Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I am aged enough to become a little bit philosopher, but still young enough to see a bright future, although it's not automatic. Since the early 30s, I started to witness a lot of transformation on Earth, on societies. And science and technology is one of the major factors in these transformations. Well, I'm very pleased to be here today, and I thank very much Horyou for creating this forum to address issues that are somehow philosophical and issues that raise ethical concerns, but also invites action. I'm talking about the contributions of science and technology, particularly from computer sciences and IT technologies. And to some extent, is one of the major factors of the transformations that we are witnessing today. As I mentioned, I was referring to the transformations that happened over the last 50, 70 years. And one of them, which I have been following to some extent also, being somehow an actor, is the idea of Glocal. Glocal is a kind of this neologism that was coined to express the emerging, increasing, accelerated trend of globalization of current activities, economic, cultural, sports, political, all sectors of life are becoming global. And IT is one of those factors that accelerates and exacerbates this trend of becoming global. But at the same time, the resilience of the local values, language, home, family, all these type of local identity of persons, of each person, of peoples, remains one of the basic assets in our lives. So the issue of global and local has been in a tension between going global, remaining local. How to reconcile this? And there are elements of ethical behavior attached to one of these. And ethics itself became an issue of reflections and transformations. Actually, I prepared this presentation attached to the internet, and all of my slides were based on accessing the internet. But unfortunately, this room has no access. So those who have mobiles and they wanted to use the QR codes, are free to use it. But fortunately, I took some precautions just in case, and I have here the main outline of my presentation. So I would like to talk about the purpose of this presentation, and then the implications of the glocal society, mean these trends to global, at the same time remaining individual, oneself, locally, with all the values attached to language, values, and all social relations. So then I would like to go from these reflections on trends towards globalization still remaining local. There are several revisions also on our ethics, lifestyle, relations, human relations, social relations, in economics, in political areas, in cultural areas. All these, they have enormous implications on ethics, which implies new ethical imperatives. And we need to consider them if we are looking at the impact of science, technology, in particular IT technologies. So if we are talking in a global society, we are considering these trends towards global village. We well know this expression of this coin indication of this global environment in which we are living. But still, the global society remains, as I mentioned before, very local. And these imperatives, ethical imperatives from global society, implies that we need to consider today not only what was the ethics under bilateral relations of nations, but thinking of the behavior, ethical behavior in economics, in culture, and in political relations, considering that we are in a global village. So, in that sense, there is the issues related to cooperation, which implies elements of this fact that we are too many today, much more people today on Earth, sharing the same resources, sharing the same environment, water, as we are going to listen soon about water. The questions of natural resources. Who has the right to have this access to these resources? Everybody, in theory. But in practice, there is not such easy access to everybody. So one of the elements that we need to include in our basic ethics in a global society is the issue that comes from a behavior considering that on Earth we are much more than 100 years ago. And we will be much more people on Earth in 20 years from now, 50 years from now. And being in a massive presence on Earth, the economic structures, the political relations, even the cultural relations, has to take into account the fact that we are much more people on Earth. But also, we have to take into account the differences, the diversity. As we are talking a lot about the diversity in nature, we have also to think of diversity on the ethnical situation of the human society. And so in that sense, diversity in culture, in language, is an essential imperative in our style of lifestyles, and also political relations, economic relations. So I'm addressing, raising these issues of political and economic and cultural relations in a much bigger human society, taking into account the global and local conditions of the human society, divided and diversified by nations, by peoples and communities. But still, IT creates and facilitates the interactions among these bigger number of people, bigger number of community, but also the diversity of each of these communities. So if IT, as I mentioned before, is an instrument, a factor for raising, exacerbating tensions, and tensions that intensifies as people increases in number, we need to think of using this same technology to facilitate the education, the information, and preparing the behavior, ethical attitudes that are compatible with this bigger number in society. IT innovations then, and this is why I was talking in the beginning, a little bit philosopher, but at the same time realistic, looking ahead in the future. And I'm pleased to be very much involved in developing a contribution, a real tool that can help in promoting the ethical values that are close to, they are more associated with this idea of a global society. IT technologies, as we all know, there has been increasing, accelerating this global society, the emerging and developing of this global society. But we are still very much in the middle, if not in the beginning of the road. Because there is much more to do in terms of be aware, reflect, and act on values, on ethical principles that are more compatible with this global society, increasing number of people and increased diversity of people. So I'm introducing here today something that our foundation is involved in developing, is the idea of merging or making convergent artificial intelligence with an artificial language. This code, barcode or QR code, was intended to show the internet address where our web page explains and shows what is this UNL. Essentially is the following. Is the idea that all what we know, all what we say is expressed either in writings, symbols, or in voice, we express and communicate. But behind the words spoken or written, there is a concept. This concept can be written, any concept, any knowledge, any information is written, be it in English, French, Chinese, Arabic, all of them, it's written in a given language. But also, they can be represented like these codes, a concept. behind this code is the internet address of our foundation and of the UNL. This code has a meaning, which means it represents information and knowledge. How about if we can represent all words in each language through symbols like that? The computer would be able to associate the symbol with the way the Chinese express the knowledge that symbols represent, or the Arabic, or the Russians. So, what we are doing is to take all dictionaries, one by one, language by language, and converting or representing it through symbols, through codes. These codes, the same computer then can give back to any language the meaning of the code. So in that way, we can think of taking a cell phone or the computer through the internet, prepare a way that each person speaking his, her mother language, any language, or writing his or her mother language, and convert it in codes, the same computer then can deconvert it, if I can say like that, in other languages. That is what we are doing. Using the internet, we are building a system of dictionaries to start with, non-ambiguous identification of concepts. Because words in English, in French, in German, any language, words are ambiguous. If I say table, there is a statistical meaning, it's a table, or there is no table here, or table for a dining room, and so on. So the codes identify the concept, not the words, not the literal representation, but we are using the concept, the semantic representation, and the grammar. So this UNL, Universal Networking Language, has been adopted as a concept for representing all knowledge that exists on Earth, written in many different languages, in codes. In that way, any people, all people, can use their own language, which is converted into code, and be understood by others, because the code is deconverted in their language, it's what it means. And like that then, as I said, using artificial intelligence, and using this artificial language, because there is lexical, grammatical, and semantic representation, independent of each language, capable of reproducing the concept in any language that is attached to this system. And we are able then to create conditions in which the diversity of languages can communicate to each other in equal situation as the other languages. But also, the most spoken languages would have a chance to understand all the more local languages. The glocal and global here becomes glocal, meaning we are building a powerful tool to facilitate the information flow from any local language to the global society and vice versa to have the global languages going to the local language through and converted in the local languages. In that way, we will have also the preservation of the diversity of cultures and languages and so on. This is the website where we have the foundation website. Unfortunately, I cannot enter as I was thinking to. And we have already today a reservoir of lexical of about 123 languages, all of them converted into codes, which means that a word in Swahili can be seen in English, in Russian, and Chinese, and vice versa. If we think a little bit, so we have the Swahili language in codes. The dictionary is already, we call it Muhit. Muhit. And this Swahili language is linked to the other 30, 40, 100 languages. And in addition to have the local language dictionary in electronic format, we have also binary or bilingual dictionaries. And if you calculate the number of bilingual dictionaries, in Switzerland, we have 4 official languages. So each one related to each other, there are 12 bilingual dictionaries or 6 bilingual dictionaries. And so if we have the 6 languages of the UN, multiply by 5, it makes 30 bilingual dictionaries. And so 100 languages dictionary, it creates an immense number of bilingual dictionaries. This is what is Muhit. And I was intended to show you some examples, but we will not be able to do that. In concluding, I'm very pleased to speak after Richard. We are following his pioneering initiative of making software free. This immense reservoir of knowledge and dictionaries is free for all. Everybody can enter the site of the foundation or the site of the UNL web that I showed you before. This one, the second one in line, and download these dictionaries, play with the same word, the same concept expressed in Chinese or in 20, 30, 40, 100 languages differently, with all the grammatical features and all the semantic information that are related to this one. This is the first, let's say, product that is coming out of the UNL. The idea, and we are working to have it for all languages of the United Nations. We came from the United Nations. This initiative started in Tokyo and at the United Nations University, and now is it has been transferred to Geneva under a foundation that was created in 2001. And this foundation is continuing to develop this universal networking language. And in this process, we have a roadmap that starts with the dictionaries, the grammars, and the knowledge systems that comes from the different language on Earth. So in concluding, I would like to say that we are very happy to contribute with a very concrete tool that can help all type of languages communicate with each other in their own style, their own grammar, their own way of cultural expressions, as well as interact with others' language in that same way. And we would like to take this advantage to invite everybody that wants to join, goes to the site, and they will see how the work is organized, how people can cooperate, participate, put their own language, any language. There are all the instructions, all the information that needs to be followed in order to get technically well-prepared electronic dictionaries, multilingual knowledge information, and be this made available to everybody interested in communicating and learning their own language, teaching their own language to others, learning other language, and sharing information, sharing knowledge, and in that way, educate the ethical values in a local society. Most welcome, and thank you very much for your attention.